Alright guys, so I'm going to do a quick video on gates. Most of the time you are not going to use this portion of your board, so just act like it's not there most of the time. But there's a few instances that you might decide you want to use it. I'm going to go over like what those might be. So most of the time gates are used on drums. That's the majority of the time. They're not used on vocals a whole lot, except in recording settings they sometimes are. But in live settings, they're not really used on vocals because of the mics you typically use don't need a gate on them. So I'll explain kind of this whole deal. So gates, basically what happens with a gate is it's similar. If you look at the controls, they're really similar to a compressor's controls. That's kind of why they're in the same section. A lot of times they're paired together. So if you look at their controls, you have threshold, you have depth, release, attack, and then you have a low frequency control and a high frequency control. So basically, what this is going to do, and this shows you open, hold, and shut. So what a gate does is it allows a certain level of sound to pass through, and anything lower than that level, it does not allow it to pass through. It's almost like the reverse of a compressor. So the lower you go, the less sound is allowed. So if I set the threshold to like -32 on here, then basically what that means is anything coming in under -32 is not even going to register. So that's like the opposite, where if it goes on a compressor, if it goes over -32, it's going to get pushed back down. On a gate, if it's below -32, it's not going to come through at all. So the reason that you want to use something like that, if you ever want to use something like that, the only reason is to keep noise from coming through your sound. So often it's just called a noise gate. So basically the only reason you might want to use a gate in any situation is if you have a lot of ambient noise. So for example, if you had like overhead mics on a drum kit that were super sensitive, then you might want to set a gate on those so that okay, imagine that what's coming in on the overhead mics is coming in at about -20, -15. Let's say that that's what it's hearing, the cymbals and everything like that. So if you're getting a lot of pickup from those from other things, like for example, if you're hearing people's voices in the overhead mics, if you're hearing an acoustic guitar in the overhead mics, whatever. So that's ambient noise. So that's what's just in the atmosphere. So that's gonna be coming in lower. So if you set this around like -35-ish, then you'd be hearing everything that the overhead mics are directly picking up, and any noise coming from the stage, you would not be hearing from those mics at all. So a lot of times there can be issues where you're hearing noise and you don't know where it's coming from because you're like, okay, this makes no sense. Like there's mics on, but we don't know which mic's picking up what. So basically the tip for that is like looking at the first thing to figure out where noise is coming from. You're going to want to look on the board and see where you're getting signal from. So if nothing's really happening, like for example, if there's just a video playing, but you're getting a weird noise, and you may look on the board and notice that, hey, one of the mics is like showing signal. So it's like, okay, maybe that mic is picking up sound from the video. So you need to either mute that mic, turn the mic off, whatever needs to be done. So that's a way of identifying where noise might be coming from. But as far as preventing it with things like overhead mics or drum mics, a gate is what is used for that. But most of the time, I don't think any of you guys need to use gates. So I would say don't even worry about it. I would say stay away from those. But that's just a general idea of why people use them. They're more common, I think, I feel like they're more common in studio recordings. I would use them more in studio recordings than I would use them in live sound, because the microphones you use are a little different, things like that, so that you have more noise from the room that you want to cancel out, all that kind of stuff. But in live settings, with the way that the mics are set up and the mics that are used and everything like that, you shouldn't have too many worries about that. You shouldn't have too many concerns about needing a gate. So for now, keep those off. But if you're ever having any weird noise issues, maybe you refer to this video and you can figure out, okay, maybe I need to go to this mic and set a gate on it, set a threshold on it so that I'm not hearing more than I want to.